These were the scenes in Wembley when Jordan Henderson opened the scoring for England in their 3-0 victory over Senegal. Beer, celebration, sweat. Oh, I bet you all wish you were in the middle of that, Craig. Fantastic.
COVID and everything.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley, and my new arch enemy, Frank LeBoeuf, is here because, of course, it will be LeBoeuf against Thomas, shorts against trousers, age against beauty in the quarterfinals.
Little against large.
Yes, exactly.
Oh. By the way, there's no better time during those celebrations to go to the bar.
Well,
because they're all talking about you. Right,
quick, get there, go there now. Alexis Nunes is with us, as is Nader Manua as well, to reflect on that victory for England. We'll be getting their views from Qatar in a moment, but overall, this was really this was weird from an England perspective because it was easy. Once you open the scoring...
Well. Yeah. No,
like the first 30 minutes was rubbish, and you thought this is going to be like the USA game all over again.
By the way, the goal just transformed the game. And I don't just mean, England are winning, that's it. I mean, transformed the performance, the belief. Because for the first, up until the goal, England, in a similar way to Holland, in a sense that, people say, Holland sat in and soaked it up. No, Holland were poor in possession. That's why he made the changes at half-time. England were poor in possession. Harry Maguire giving it away. They couldn't get the ball out to the fullbacks. They couldn't get it into midfield. Senegal had high energy and were pressing and harrowing and they created those very good chances. So it wasn't, please, nobody tell me this was a plan for England to sit back and soak it up. England wanted to control this game. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. Pickford had to make saves. There was a handball on John Stones, but I don't think it was a penalty, but it was one of those things, it could happen. And then that brilliant goal transformed England and deflated Senegal. It wasn't the way Southgate, in my opinion, would have pictured it, but once they got it, Dan, it was like a stranglehold. Yeah. Then we saw the England that I think we all know is in there.
It was like someone had just pulled the plug on Senegal. Like any sort of energy, any sort of spark just disappeared.
Exactly. They lost their composure, their energy, everything. It was like, we conceded a goal. Okay, we did. We're not gonna equalize and everything. And that was strange. And it's a little bit something that we've seen during that World Cup, where you miss a penalty or you miss a chance. And 10 minutes after, the other team
it was
scores.
that save from Pickford, wasn't it?
Exactly. The save for Pickford is a great save, because otherwise it would have been different. But we've seen that like a couple of times during that World Cup. But I never thought that Senegal will shut down in that way, because it was like half an hour. And we say, for just for the sake of that game, make sure England doesn't score just before halftime. Yeah. Kane.
Kane obviously.
The half-time one was brilliant. The half-time one was a killer. If the coach gets them back in at half-time at 1-0 and goes, that's a punch in the nose, and we have to deal with it. Then maybe we would have seen a different Senegal in the second half.
Maybe,
but no, Frank. And you can't deny the 2 goals England scored in the first half. The third goal, yes, brilliant, but the 2 goals they scored were absolutely brilliant. And of course, we've sat in here and we talked about Bellingham, we talked about Foden. Yeah. We asked the question, you see, particularly Bellingham, he's getting all the plaudits, and rightly so, but to have that strength and balance to get through those strong physical Senegalese players in the middle of the park, then play that pass, that obviously to Foden, then to Kane, bang, game over. Yeah. It's just incredible, and England have got that talent at their disposal.
I love that picture between Anderson and Bellingham after when they were all together.
We won't recreate it.
Yeah, the eldest. The eldest with the youngest, and you can imagine whatever you want. Like Anderson saying, if you come to Liverpool next year, we can give you passes like that. Yeah. It would be like those kind of comments. But that was so good. At the beginning of the World Cup, after the first game of England, I said that for the first time, I feel there is a spirit in that squad, and this picture is exactly what I meant. That's really what. There is no differences between the eldest and the youngest. Maybe there is 15 years difference. I don't know how many, but it's like they are one. So they become strong when they need it. They fight together, and it's great to see.
Let's go to Alexis and Nadim. Is it concerning, though, guys, that it took them 35 minutes really to get going in this game? Because against more superior opposition, like, for example, France on Saturday, they're not going to let you get away with it.
Yeah, Dan, you know, I think you could definitely have cut the tension in this Al Bayt Stadium, I suppose, in those minutes then, Nadim, because everyone actually saw that Senegal, even though they didn't have as many chances at first as England did, they were looking dangerous when they finally got on the ball, and you feel like if they just got on the end of those chances, they probably would have been a different game. Yeah,
for sure, but, you know, this is the way football works. If you don't sort of capitalise on the opportunities that you have, then this is the way a game can be. And for me, looking up from a pie down onto the field, it was
in hospitality.
Anyway,
so because Nadim was in hospitality, guys. He wasn't in the media
so as I was saying, the key thing for me was for England in that first 30 minutes, they were moving the ball side to side, but they didn't really have much penetration. And as well as that, they weren't really trying to stretch the game in behind. I think there were times when Saka wouldn't necessarily run in behind, Foden wouldn't run in behind. And so as a consequence for Senegal, everything was kind of in front of them. So even though defending is never really that easy, it's easier when you don't have to turn and run back towards your own goal. And I think there was a stoppage in play for a while. And I saw Jordan Henderson go over to the sideline. And maybe at this point some information was given over, because literally 2 minutes later, there was a point where I think he received the ball from John Stones and he wanted to play it around the corner high to Saka, who didn't go. And I watched as he berated Saka, saying, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. And then from that point, they started to make more runs in behind. They started to be more dynamic with and without the ball. And I think that's where, for me, those 2 goals kind of came from, through sort of dynamic movements and really trying to play on the shoulder just that little bit more. And then, obviously, the timing of the second goal was key, because that's essentially what happened in the Netherlands game as well for them when Daley Blind scored. And, you know, this isn't the best version of Senegal because they have key players missing. But in the second half, Senegal tried to switch the formation a little bit, almost match up with England in midfield. Because in the first half, looking at it, they only had 2 central midfielders and they kind of left 4 high. Now they tried to go for a 3, but what chance have you got when you concede that early? But I think in the second half, but I think for England, they were more aggressive in terms of how they were trying to stretch the game, how they were not shy in terms of trying to go for territory over possession at times, and really applying the pressure. And in the end, it was a comfortable performance for them in that second half. But they did have to weather some sort of storm. But I think credit deserves to go to them because they made the adjustment. And when they make those sorts of adjustments with the players that they have, you know, I think they can be a very dangerous side. And obviously, playing against France will be a tough game. But even though they showed weakness, I think other teams have done as well. And the strengths in which they have, if they can manage to sort of manifest those in that game, I think it should be a fantastic quarterfinal. And
I know that, of course, in your hierarchy of needs or your favorite things, there's your family first, of course. And then there's Jordan Henderson. He, of course, scored that goal today. But what a play from Jude Bellingham. He's really impressed everybody so far this World Cup. But for you, who's been the impact player for England? Has it been him?
I think Jude Bellingham, throughout that first 30 minutes, I thought he was one of England's better players. I think there were a few who were probably a bit quiet. Like, overall, Saka scored, but I didn't think he had the best of games as well. But Bellingham was trying to drive. He was trying to really take it to the Senegalese. He was putting himself about. He was trying to make passes. He was trying to run with the ball. And it was great because, you know, England have been accused of being quite negative. But then here's a goal where 1-8 breaks into the box and cuts it back for the other number 8. And that's, you know, that's kind of what you want to see. You want them to be dynamic. And I think they've got a really good balance with that, with Rice sitting in the 6th as well. So I think Bellingham has been incredible, and you see the way they celebrate. And as Frank said, you know, you can feel the sort of team, sort of like chemistry and atmosphere that is there. But I think it's been there for now a couple of tournaments. I think when I see the way that they play today, again, they were not perfect, but you can see that they were doing things together. They had an understanding of what they needed to do. They understood their own job and how their job works in with the overall picture. So for England, you know, not everybody will fancy them, but they'll fancy themselves because they've kind of been here before. And going into this game against France, maybe they are the underdog. But maybe that unity will be the thing which gets them across the line potentially. And yeah, as I say, it's going to be a fantastic game.
And I'm sure we can regret a lot of things, and a lot of teams can regret some notable absentees. Sadio Mane for Senegal, of course, we have no doubt that he is the heartbeat of that team, that core of that team as well. I almost want to say, would it have been a different game? But how much do you think of a difference he would have made?
Yeah, it would have made a big difference. You know, this is somebody that was on the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or. I think anytime you can have somebody like that in your team, it's going to be very, very significant. But I think also missing Gay in midfield, you know, that definitely did affect them. I think even when you look at that, though, England probably would potentially overmatch them. But I think the game would be different. And, you know, they tried to make changes at half-time to try and arrest some of the issues in which they had. But ultimately, it just didn't work out for them. And it's a disappointment for them. But overall, as they look at this year, you know, they're African champions for the very first time. And as a consequence, you know, there's a sense of disappointment to losing to England. But in the end, you know, they are still a very good side and have had a very good year.
Is it coming home? Oh.
I'm going home. I'll say that instead.
But is football coming?
I might need to readdress my bracket. Yeah.
Oh, Dan, he's trying to stay on the fence with this one. What about you, Dan? Is it coming home from what you saw?
Not yet, Alexis. We're not at that stage of excitement. So let's calm everything down a little bit.
They're not allowed to go to Shakai's club studio anymore?
They've
been kicked out?
They've just come from the game, haven't they?
Oh, right.
We're going to send them outside.
I thought because Shaka is coming to Qatar, maybe he put them out.
He's taken over the stadium. You look at the individual performances, and obviously they mentioned Jude Bellingham, 19 years of age. It's a bit special, isn't it, to have that sort of confidence on this stage
I was looking at Musiala's performances. If we compare similar physiques in a sense, similar league, both playing for big clubs, obviously Bayern Munich are ahead of Dortmund, that's obvious. And I was thinking, watching him, how he slithers away from people in tight spaces and how effective he's been for Germany and Bayern, that maybe he was a little step ahead of Bellingham. But I think I've had to rethink that, just purely on how he handled himself in this game. I think the best thing that could ever happen for that young boy leaving Birmingham at 16 years old, think about it, not going to London or an hour down the road, going to Germany. And I think it's the greatest thing, and kudos to his family if they were saying to him, listen, this is a life lesson to you. Get away, you're going to grow up fast. And the other side of the coin is, I think he's got much more game time in the Bundesliga coming into this World Cup.
Yes.
And, all these games he's had for England than he ever would have done had he gone to Liverpool, United, City. Yes, he would have got games. But one thing we can criticise the Bundesliga in a sense about, we're not criticise, but we can sort of observe Bayern Munich's domination. But the one thing we can't deny is they've been a great platform for a lot of young players, American players, Jude Bellingham, and I think we saw that today.
Gareth Southgate has been in some quarters, like for example, when we talk about England's run under him over the last couple of tournaments, you said that, he had the easier side of the bracket, he didn't have to beat anyone.
Yeah. I don't think Senegal were easy.
Right.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I really don't. And Needham touched on it, Idrissa Gueye, Sadio Mane. Idrissa Gueye in there, in the midfield, in the engine room. And I don't think Senegal are easy, and we saw that. However, we are going to effectively, we're not going to learn about England. We know they're a really good side, but the French have already proven it time and time again with the odd blip, Frank, that they can handle the pressure of the big moment. England's big one was the Euros. Mm-hmm. It was a slim failure, but it was failure on penalties. Before that, it was a semi-final. It was a poor performance. If they step it up, and we know they can, against the French, then I think we'll all have to sit back and go, hey, this is the real deal.
We'll be looking ahead.
At the same time, it's a test for France, because we're
going
to talk about it. Just want to rectify something, because I've been carried away by the tête-à-tête between Anderson and Jude Bellingham.
Right.
It's Jude Bellingham who made a pass an assist to Anderson, and not the other way around. Sorry about that.
Can I say something quickly before, Harry Kane, right, I know that was his first goal. If England had won 5-0 today and Harry Kane hadn't scored, I'd have been sitting here going, what a performance.
Right.
And I think the thing is with him for me is, and people may disagree, I don't think at the moment there is a better natural number 9 who both scores goals and can go into midfield and pass the football almost like a Steven Gerrard, a Ray Wilkins, a Glenn Hoddle. His range of passing for a people will say, well, Benzema, Lewandowski. Yeah, that's a different debate. Are they better strikers? Probably. But can they go back in and pass it? Yes. But we've seen him go back in for club and country and play raking 60-yard balls over the top, balls around the corner, get turned, slide people in. That's a great facet to have if your striker's not scoring.
Yeah, but you mentioned, of course, he did score. And what was interesting, when you saw that it was Kane one-on-one with the keeper, you knew. You knew it was going to end up in the back.
Yeah, even if it's Mendy in front of him, and sometimes you feel that you can be confident about the guy he's going to save it. But Kane is so accurate in front of the goal. He doesn't think too much. He knows what he has to do. He knows that he has to pull the ball a little bit in the air, but not too much. Strong shot. And that's perfect, and nothing you can do about it. The guy is a masterpiece, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. There is a time for everybody to realize that England has maybe one of the best strikers.
Think about Harry Kane playing for Tottenham. How many times in those possessions do you see Harry Kane? Okay, he might miss. How many times do you see him ballooning it high over the bar? He might miss, but a lot of times you watch him, he strikes it low and hard and generally for the
And how many times he came back in the middle to serve Son? You know, to go back, to turn and to serve Son.
And we saw that again today.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.